I'm here with Arnaud Belinga today, and the first time we connected was in January 2022, and it's crazy to realize that's been 3 years. And this was the first period, the start of Breckhold that you co-founded, and I remember you told me the MVP was built in a time of 2 weeks as well. So for the people who are new here, for the people who don't know about you yet, Breckhold is a CRM slash sales software. We're going to talk about SaaS. We'll be talking about some of the personal journey, which we did just before off camera. And I think it'll be an informative and entertaining conversation as always. Now, to add on some quick background here, Breckhold did 20K of revenue in its first month when launching a 2 week MVP product, not MRR. The second month, it went first place on Product Hunt and then hit 2K MRR. And before all of this, you've actually studied 7 years to become a lawyer. So my first question to you is, how does it feel to look back at those 3 years of transformation?
Yeah, look, first, thank you very much for inviting me here. Hello, everyone. No, I think it's been a wide journey because, like you mentioned, Cole started pretty much like January 2022, but initially it wasn't a sales CRM. It was more like an AI first line tool with cold emailing built in. And essentially, after a whole year, we pretty much pivoted from this and started to do like some social selling software. Then 6 months after that, we kind of rebuilt everything. And so you see, when you see January 2022, I was like, yeah, actually, we started the journey on that period, but it's actually less than 2 years that we really focus on this version of Breckhold, which is a sales CRM and growing pretty good in the good direction. So I think, yeah, this was like ups and downs actually, but like you mentioned, because we made so much money, because when you bootstrap, no VC funds, etc., and you do a lot of money like the first months, it really motivates you to be like, oh, it does work, like I just need to find how to do it more and every month. And so yeah, I think that was probably like the period, like January 2022, that got us the motivation to keep pushing and to be okay, it's as long as we stay in the game, like it will work out. And yeah, everyone that I knew back then that kept doing the business, ourselves, yourself, we pretty much made it. Like we're not like multi millions dollars a year yet. But I think like as long as we stay in the game, we will get there and faster and faster. And all the other guys that I knew back then, they either switch projects every 2 months or
Yeah.
they either like stopped. And I think in the end, like it's not about being like the smartest or like, the most skilled. It's really about like staying in the game. And if you just stay, like you will make it. It's like literally exponential. And so yeah, I think being a bit patient about it. Still pretty young, both of us under 30. I think yeah, it's a pretty good move to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate to that and I like that. And the thing is as well, like for entrepreneurs like ourselves, we really see that if our personal life develops, our business develops. And
Yeah.
usually when our business develops, our personal life develops as well. And I recently heard something which I want to repeat here, which is that businesses do not fail, but people do. And I think that's directly aligned with what you just mentioned because I know so many people as well that I connected with on X, just like you, just like so many others. And there's so many of these people who are just jumping project with project, right? And I've had a few times this year and last year where I've been reconnecting with people I didn't spoke for like 2 years or something. And then everyone is like, oh, what are you still doing? Or what are you new doing right now? And there's this assumption that you're changing things, but it's
Yeah.
like, no, man, I'm still doing the same exact thing, you know? So it's good to see that from your side as well. But what is that realization point that you had that really allowed you to have the determination to say, all right, I'm going to do this full time. I'm going to do the entrepreneurship thing. I'm going to build this out. Like, how did that feel at that particular point?
Yeah, I think like I just noticed that the most successful entrepreneurs that I know a bit personally, or just I know from like the YouTube channel, Twitter account, or whatever, I just realized it was just about like focus, and it gets better and better over time, and that they were not switching projects every 2 months. And I noticed that for VC founded startups, more specifically for Bootstrap businesses, whether they were agencies or like software companies. And then I just rethought about the whole thing. I moved out from the business side of things. And it's the same about other industries. I mean, if you're an employee and you want to have an exceptional career, like the CEO of Google, the CEO of Apple, they were not entrepreneurs. Like they really made the bottom up approach where they built a career over like 20 years plus inside a company. It's the same if you're an athlete. Like obviously you cannot become like a Formula One driver or professional NBA player if you haven't focused from 8, 10 years old until like 20 years old plus and just doing that. And so it's the same in business, you know, like I think like they talk about like, you know, like the 10,000 hours rule, which usually corresponds, whatever the industry, sports or business, it's pretty much like 10 years. So essentially, if you just focus on 10 years on something, you would be in the top 1% at it. And I also realized that it was the same for my studies. You mentioned I became a lawyer, like M&A tax lawyer, never practiced though. And it took me 7 years to go from like high school to become a lawyer, but also it took me like 7 years plus to throughout that journey working hard, staying in the game to do like the best master's degrees, the best internships, taking a gap year to do like even better internships in the best, literally like the best law firm in the world, like Kirkland and Ellis. And it was just about like staying in the game, really the same, because people along the way, they were, I don't know, validating the master's degree, and it was like, yeah, I'm gonna stop there. And then once you get the bar exam, like people, they're like, yeah, I just want to work now. I don't want to take a gap year to go after like literally the top 0.1% best law firm in the world. And it was pretty much the same. And then I was like, yeah, it's just the same with entrepreneurship, and especially with what we do, which is a sales CRM. And for the people listening, in the SaaS industry, the biggest SaaS in the world is a CRM. It's Salesforce, $30 billion a year plus. Then you have HubSpot, which everyone knows, multiple $1 billion a year. It's a CRM. The CRM is like literally the most competitive space in software. And you won't kill it in 2 years. You won't kill it even in 5, 6, 7 years. It's a long game. And I think if you just stay in it, you can go pretty big. And I really like the example also, even though it was a different era, about like MailChimp, because MailChimp, for the ones listening, like it's pretty much like an email marketing software, but they started in 2005 or something, and they exited the company almost 15, 20 years later for like $30 billion bootstrapped. So it's literally they were like multiple billion cash exits. But when you listen to the guys like and on podcasts and stuff, they're like, yeah, we just stay in the game. We were like pretty patient. And you know, most people, especially with software companies, even like agencies, to be fair, like they just want like quick bucks, cash exits. But if you think about the long term, it's not how you will create, if we talk about money, like generational wealth. And final realization is that I like to point out is people, they already like Mark Zuckerberg, billionaire, 21 years old, like etc. And I don't know, like the Aaron Spiegel, Snapchat, billionaire, like under 30 years old. Yes, you have like a few exceptions, but when you don't listen to the media and you don't see all of the stuff, like you realize that most billionaires or cash billionaires, they're more like in the 40s. They started in the 20s. They just focus on one thing for literally 20 years, and it just builds up. And throughout this journey, they already become like super wealthy. I mean, eventually they became billionaires. But what you notice is that most actual billionaires, they haven't made the journey with like a VC fund, like where they get investment and they want to scale super fast to become a $1 billion company or whatever. It's actually people who are in like a blue collar business, real estate, software, that keep 100% of the shares and just were patient. And when you ask them, yeah, just doing the same boring stuff every day for X amount of years. And yeah, I think the biggest realization for me was sports. Again, I was very talented at sports, but I had no guidance from my family or parents to keep focus at a young age. I think you really need to have like a strong environment to push you as a kid to stay in the field where you're good. And I was very good at most sports, but I was always changing sports every year or so. So I would play tennis and will kill guys who were playing like for 10 years in literally 1 year doing tournaments. And then I was switching sport because I was like, hey, I validated the sport, but I had not this mentality to just keep one thing in focus. And yeah, I think like it's the same with business. So yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. And I just want to circle a little bit back here because when you started specifically Breckhold here, how aware were you of the market position and the research? Like, did you already approach it with the mindset of, hey, I know this is a very long-term thing. I'm very much aware of how big the CRM market specifically in SaaS is? Or is it something you kind of all developed throughout building this out?
No, I think it's something we have developed. I think if we're like super honest, like we will never have built CRM if we knew back then how tough this market would be. What I mean is, and I think it's an advantage actually to not be too much aware about a market when you go into it, because you don't have the assumptions of the people who are in the market, so you have more like a creative mind. Usually by accident or voluntarily, you make a dent in the market. But I think no, we didn't know how tough it was. For example, Google Ads. So Google Ads in most niches, it's all right. Like, $1 a click, $2, $3, $5 is already a lot, right? CRM space, Google Ads, you're against Salesforce. They literally sponsor Formula One. You're against HubSpot, and one click on Google Ads is literally $60. So you cannot compete on ads. You cannot compete on SEO. Really, you really have to be super original to kickstart your thing. And product-wise, it's like the hardest thing to build a CRM. It's very tech heavy. People, they want a lot of things. So until you get to product maturity, there's many months or years where you can die. And we made it to survive. And so the bet is that a couple of months in, when we really decided to go to build a CRM and we realized how tough it would be, we made a bet essentially. And the bet was you almost gotta be stupid to build a sales CRM in 2024 back then. And in 2023, because no VC funds will fund you because they don't think you can go after Pipedrive, and they think that the space is too tough, and they're pretty right, because all the CRMs that tried to raise funds in the last 10 years, 15 years, they pretty much fail. Like there's no like new cool big CRM since 2010, and so that is for the VCs. And then when it comes to like bootstrap companies, you need like a lot of cash to make this work, because again, you need to build a product. It's very hard to distribute it. It's even harder. And so most people, normal people, I would say, they will give up after 1 month, 2 months, because again, you need to focus to make this shit work. And so that was the bet. Like you got to be so stupid to make a CRM in this modern era that like no one gonna do it. You won't gonna have like competition. If people do a copycat, they will give up, because you really need to be passionate about it. But if you do succeed, even just a little bit, it's such a big space that the only competition you have, they're already making $50, $100 million a year, so they are up market. You don't really have competition, and it goes faster and faster and faster. And good luck for the copycats, because how tough it is. It's like, to me, like it's the end game of SaaS. Like even people who have like, with respect, like they have like gigantic SaaS, $20 million a year, bootstrap, $30 million a year, bootstrap, even themselves, they say, oh, I would never do a CRM. We tried, it's just too tough. And they know how tough this game is. And that's why it's a bet, really. And I think we already managed to complete the bet, in the sense that we didn't die, we survived. We're profitable. Now we have enough money to start building a team. So step by step, like we're already better than potential competitors that raise like $2 million, $10 million, that are not profitable, that realize it's a tough industry and that they can die. But even us, if we're going slower, we won't die. And so long term, I think it's going to be a very good business. It's already a pretty good business technically.
Yeah. Man, that's so awesome, man. And I think you dropped some super great insights. I think when it comes to marketing approach, you really gave a new perspective here, because I asked you this because I think a lot of people, I'm just relating to this myself, like you're starting a business with a vision, but you're actually not mature enough to understand the importance of the market research and of all of that stuff. So you're learning that while you're developing. And I think you really laid out very beautifully here that ignorance almost allows you to be more creative. And also how you stack up these wins, and how you mentioned that the fact that you're profitable, you're surviving, is a big win. I think a lot of people can learn from that, man. I think that's super, super great. I want to follow up on that and ask you as well, in your current position, now that you have the developed product, you have a team around you, how do you navigate decisions to act on ideas? Meaning, if you guys have some sort of idea or there's some sort of new project, is it a matter from your perspective of getting a lot of these things done as quickly as possible and doing as much of that as possible? Or is it more that you're quite selective on what to focus on and you're really staying within your wheelhouse?
Yeah. On this, I think we're very blessed to have more and more customers and lots of potential prospects that are coming to us. And so essentially how we take decisions is you have a lot of people, hundreds, multi-hundreds of people, and most of them, they say, yeah, I want this. And another guy say, I want the exact same thing. And the other guy say, I want the exact same thing. And so from there, like you build pretty much a list internally on the most recurring feedback or desire from customers, from prospects. Also, when you lose deals, you start to notice a pattern of like the most objections to your product or to your software in general, and then you realize, okay, then we need to kill that objection A, objection B, objection C. And the more you do that, the more it's easy to get new customers, to retain them. And so this is how we prioritize, observe like the pattern, and from there we know if it's a recurring desire or recurring objection, and from there we act on it. Like as a software, for the last couple of months, it was mainly about shipping a tons of new features, and right now we're taking a break for like 40 days, 60 days to just do like the little optimizations that people ask. I have a couple of friends that have other SaaS and doing like a couple of $1 million in annual revenue, and they don't have that much feedback, so they don't really know what kind of new features or direction to take to improve things even more. Us, it's the opposite. We're still a bit lower, but we have much more feedback, and so we literally have like, we know what we can do in the next 2 years easily, and then it's just about like prioritizing. So essentially, when you build a software, if it's a massive feature that's going to take 6 months of development, should we not before take 2 months to do all the little stuff first, stabilize the software, make sure that it's bug free, and then for 6 months the team's going to be focused on that massive feature that for sure going to provoke a lot of bugs. So first we need to have a version that is stable, and this is pretty much where we're at right now, because you need to do the basics as a CRM, but you also have to innovate because there's so much things you can do with, again, these gigantic softwares that don't care about like SMBs, because now they're doing hundreds of $1 million in annual revenue, so they will not build the things that we will build. So yeah, that's pretty much how we decide stuff, and it's all about like, yeah, resources, especially with the tech team. So depending on how many devs you have and the level, like you know how much they cost you, and so you prioritize the time, because I think as a software, even more than an agency or service business, churn is very important if you want to grow. You can have, right now we can have the same product, no new features, but if we just reduce churn or just stabilize it, we'll keep growing again and again and again. While if we had new features, big features, we might not be focused on the day-to-day to stabilize the software, to fix minor bugs for people. So we will have more churn, which is paradoxical because the product is getting better. And so yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any other industry where customer feedback is so important as in SaaS.
Yeah.
I've managed myself SaaS as well, where I manage a few hundred users at the top point, and compared to managing a maximum of 100 clients on a B2B service type of thing, there's a huge amount of difference. And I do think in general, no matter what type of business, that customer journey is incredibly important. Like you need to lay out how you actually help and guide them and all these things. But with SaaS, that instant feedback is like the biggest thing, right? Yeah. And that's why there's also this MVP concept, which is really like a true thing in SaaS. It's much more easier to have this type of MVP thing built. And you guys have like such a strong case study because you've built it in 2 weeks. And I remember you're saying in a video as well that you had about 200 users just from a landing page. I'm not sure what the period was, but what did that initial market strategy look like? How did you market it the very first time you actually went live?
Yeah, I think like on the MVP now, my views have changed because I would say that depending on how hard the product is, I think the whole MVP thing is actually bullshit.
Okay.
Back then, I thought that, yeah, MVP, 2 weeks, 1 week, you got to go for it. But retrospectively, I would actually argue that depending on the business, on the SaaS, you should probably take even 6 months to build an MVP. And that's pretty much what we did when we rebuilt like Breckhold to be a sales CRM. But going back to your point, how we've done it is, yeah, the goal was back then to literally make something work. And so we built like the MVP in 2 weeks. And for the first week, we were building. So I was designing, suggesting ideas. Matteo was coding, and the next week Matteo was on his own, and I was on Twitter X back then, and I was like just promoting the software. But how I've done it, actually, how we got the first 260 users was through Facebook groups. I went to Facebook groups with like early adopters, Facebook pages, and I was just spamming my product on these pages, asking for people if they want to try it for free. So we built like a gated page where people can sign up to access the beta. And I was like manually doing an onboarding call with them. And so this is how we got the first users. But when it comes to the first customers, it was like through Twitter, because we were building in public back then. And this is how Twitter helped us a lot. And so by literally telling how we got 260 users as a beta user, which were not like the most qualified guys, most of them were brokies, if we're fair. But still, it helped us a lot. And from there, like, we got eyeballs from Twitter. And yeah, I think you know this already, but you were literally the first customer of Breckhold. Yeah, I think you were. It was on the same day, but you were the first. And yeah, and we just had this very, very low pricing back then, which was just $15 per month. And I think, yeah, you took like a 3-month subscription or something. And yeah, this is how we've done the marketing. So the idea was, the product was MVP, it was working. They had no specific bugs on the AI stuff. Back then, it was pre-chat GPT, so it was pretty original. And then we just focused really on distribution. That's why we were able to make money the first months, and also building MRR fast for such a basic product, because we were just focused on distribution. And then we realized as a SaaS that, yeah, you gotta have a very strong product, especially in the sales space. And this is where like we like stopped a bit distribution. We like literally disappeared from Twitter, because there was a lot of work to be done to build like, if you want to build like a proper software business, yeah, you can't do it with an MVP that much unless you do a tool. I would differentiate between like a tool who does one thing. So for example, a tool would be maybe like an email, not an email finder, because it can be complicated. Literally a tool that does one thing, versus a platform like a CRM, a live chat software, all this kind of stuff. It's pretty tough to build. It's a platform, it's like 50 tools in one. So you cannot MVP that really. And that's why I'm actually happy that we're building a platform, because again, there's a whole thing in SaaS where you need to defend your software against like copycats and stuff. And when there's always copycats, it's on like solo tools, because it's so fast to copy it. Because even though the tool is pretty solid and they've built it for 4 years, it's still a tool. And so you can, in 1 week, make a thing that is a lot worse, but on the appearance, it's as good as the other. And typically like an email finder, like you can build like something very, very bad in terms of email enrichment rate, but it's still an email finder. So people will say, oh, they don't know until they try the software really. So if you're really good at distribution, you can scale that pretty fast and taking like some shares of the other guys. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I've got a few small quick things I want to go through.
Yeah.
I think the marketing conversation here is very, very interesting, but I want to hear from your perspective, from your expertise, what you recommend for mostly agencies, but moreover just the people online to approach sales, because you've been helping all the users, and I'm pretty sure you have a lot of insights into what other people are doing. You know what kind of works. So what's your best advice how an average online agency should approach sales? Like, what do they need to think of?
Yeah. So just to put context on this, so that people gonna trust what I say. But yeah, We have like lots of case studies at Breckhold, most of our customers, the agencies, and so you can check this on our website. But we have Steven who added like $17,000 in MRR less than 4 months. Annie T, $70,000 MRR in 6 months. And so a lot of guys basically adding like between like 4 to 6 figures per month using Breckhold in less than a year. And basically we help them on part of it. And so I would say the biggest thing I see with our agency customers, especially the ones below 20K per month, or the ones that are starting out a bit, is that they want to automate stuff way too much before knowing what actually works. Like they really want to learn all the tools, while the only thing they could do is build an offer 1.5K per month, 2K per month. Just build a list of 100 leads, your ideal leads, and just work on them like for a whole month like a psycho. Because most people, again, they automate too much. So not a lot of agencies actually work like psychos on the leads. And so when you're starting out, or when you're below like 20K, even when you are at 20K, to go to like, I don't know, like 80K per month, like you literally don't need that many leads when you think about it. If let's say the thing you sell is at 2K per month, and so to reach like 40K per month, like you don't need that many people. Yes, good service delivery to don't have churn, etc. But to acquire people, you don't need to build like cold emailing campaigns at scale, to do LinkedIn automation at scale. Like just go in the trenches and like build a small list, super qualified, but be on the guts every single day for the next like 45 days. And out of the hundreds, there will be like 5 guys maybe who will say yes. So it's already like 10K per month. And like out of these guys, if it works out, the service delivery is like top notch, like they will bring each of them one customer. And then if you're really good, it can compound like this. You will have some churn, obviously. And then once you have your first batch that is making you 10K per month, maybe, like you just redo the operation with a new batch of 100 leads. And literally, if you check our case study with like Steven on Breckhold, like Steven Brady, like 17,000 MRR, 0 to 17 in 4 months. It's literally what he did. And we had another case study recently. It wasn't MRR, but some part is MRR, which it was like $160K in 4 months closed. And he's using literally 0 tools except us. He's doing everything manually, chatting with people, using Breckhold. When you do like lead magnets, he's not scraping to get the leads. He's just going through manually the likes and the comments and say, oh, this guy is qualified. And no one is doing that actually, which I think is madness. The fastest growing agencies I see, they have 2 things in common. They do a lot of things that actually don't scale. And they go after bigger accounts, meaning that when they close a deal, it's not like $500 per month. It's like minimum 2K per month, 3K per month. But to get this kind of customers that don't churn, that have a lot of money, that are not brokies and stuff, like you got to put the work in and really work on them. And it won't happen overnight with too much automations.
Yep.
That would be the 2 things. The third thing would be most of them, they just have a shitty offer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, man. And I have a final thing to close it off with as well, because you talked about this before, where you said that Breckcold was basically pre-ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. And I know as well that you guys, in my perspective, as far as I know, you were one of the earliest tools that actually implemented AI, at least from what I've seen, like in this way. Like obviously AI and algorithms and things like that, it's along there. But you guys actually had this tool where AI was like a key feature, and you used it to personalize the cold outreach. I think you were one of the first guys to actually do that. Anyways, if we look back, let's say, to that starting point, 2021, 2022, all the way to right now, 2025, how much has changed in this business space, like from your perspective?
You mean the sales space?
For sales space, everything basically, because there's so much AI, the way you launch a product changed, the way content works changed. So what are some of these biggest trends that you see for the big change, as well as what do you think has stayed the same?
Yeah, for me, the biggest trends is that it's getting much, much, much easier to do lead generation thanks to cold emailing tools at scale like Instantly, Smart Lead, HeyReach for LinkedIn automation. So it's much easier technically to generate leads, but because of that, the barriers to entry is very low. So it's much harder actually to get in touch with someone. That's why the manual method is actually making a strong comeback, because the ones who do it manually, they have much better results and faster, which is pretty yeah, strange when you think about it. So I think that would be the biggest change. It's much easier to generate leads, but because of that, you really have to be super relevant and have a very good offer and strong case studies. So I would argue it's kind of a harder to maybe create a business if you don't have case studies and stuff. And then when it comes to the AI, I think what I noticed the most is because it's so much easier now to generate leads, to maybe automate stuff, people, like we said, like they just want to do that first and use AI first, and AI content, for example, AI comments. And so they never made it successfully manually. And so actually there's a lot of crap, like a lot of people doing AI content, videos, AI avatars, AI lead gen, AI SDRs, all this thing. But like they just focus on all of that, but they like I think the level is way lower now when you see new entrants, and so they're not very good actually. And so I think it creates a very good advantage if you are willing to do the stuff more before like adding AI. When it comes to like softwares, I think they're just adding AI for the sake of adding AI. So maybe except Clay or software similar to Clay, I don't think like the AI is that much helpful in old softwares. So except maybe the Clay stuff and AI note takers, which obviously is a game changer just for the summary, the transcript, the summary and stuff. I don't think like there's that many strong use cases. When you go on YouTube, you have lots of videos on automating your business with AI agents, etc. When you think about it, like most AI agents, they're not AI agents. It's just like literally like a bunch of ifs in the code. It's not AI agents.
Yes.
The like true AI agents, there's a couple, but people they don't have the level to do it correctly because they don't even know what works manually. Again, it's all comes back to this. So the ones who are actually leveraging AI are the much more mature companies that are doing like minimum like $3-4 million a year, and the ones who benefit the most from AI are the richest actually. And the ones who I think are losing the most out of it are the ones who are starting out because they get like excited about now you have Lovable, you can build a SaaS without knowing how to code, and yes, you can do some types of SaaS, but you cannot do all types of SaaS. And actually you will realize that you need a developer like because you can't finish the project with this kind of thing. But I think it's gonna get better. But still, I think people, because of that, it's like social media as a consumer, like it adds a lot of noise. And then people, they want to do a lot of stuff. They want to jump on the next trend and the next trend and the next trend, which I think is good because if you come back to the beginning of the podcast, I think if you are just super mature, regardless of your age, about focusing, even if it's you do an AI stuff, like I don't care, but if you just know that you should not jump on the trends too much or just riding the wave, and even if the wave is not like popping like an AI niche stuff, like there's always momentum in a wave. And so for example, if the guys who were doing drop shipping and then they moved to, I don't know, like building AI agencies, and like they could have stayed in drop shipping actually. And I think there's less competition right now if you do drop shipping, and AI then came to drop shipping. But if you would have stayed in drop shipping and you master it, like you would have leveraged AI directly because you were so still in the industry. So I think like staying in the lane that you like the most is an advantage because people they can't focus really. Like between the business and consumer wise, they're very very bad. So I think that is the biggest shift I saw, and I think there's a lot of softwares that are trying to do everything. And I think if we talk about trends, a real trend that I see is people trying to consolidate the tech stack because there's so many softwares. It can be costly, and so I think like now the trend we see at Breckhold is people trying to having like maximum 2 to 3 tools and not necessarily reducing costs, but just simplifying the tech stack, simplifying the processes, because there's so many things you can do, but then the teams, the employees, they don't work like they should be working because they think they can magically get leads and magically close customers, which is not the case.
Yeah. Man, I think that's the most powerful note to end it with. I really resonate with everything you said. I think you're totally right. The importance of actually getting results and doing things rather than trying to automate it first is such a big thing. And that's super good stuff, man. Is there anything else you want to say before we close it off?
No, not to be said. Except go try Breckhold at breckhold.com. 14-day free trial, but except that, man, nothing was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we'll have a link below and besides and everywhere, so you can check it out. Thank you for checking in as well. And Arnaud, thank you so much for your time, man.
Cheers. Bye.